Welcome to Chapter 6 of Miles Regan First Day. Chapter 6, Flashback. Before we begin, check out other books created by MJJ Taylor, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Adam Clark was not his name. It was the mask he wore. Behind it was Spectre. His role was not to pull the trigger, it was to build the orchestra and let others play the music. The back room of the Croydon flat stank of cigarettes, fried chicken, and stale curtains. The wallpaper curled from damp. A single lamp hung low over the table, turning the smoke into a halo of yellow haze. On the table, a model of Wembley Stadium, rail maps spread wide, timetables scrawled in red, burner phones lined up like soldiers. 5 sat with Clark. To anyone else, they were locals. To him, they were ghosts in borrowed skins. Mark, the Welshman laugh always at the ready, vowels lilting, roll-up stuck to his lip. But Clark knew his real name, Yuri. He was no rugby boy from Cardiff. He was Spetsnaz once, a sniper who had cut men down in Chechnya. Connor, the Cockney scaffolder, fast talk, East End slang, swagger that sold the role. But Clark knew him as Mikhail, Chechen-born, who had seen Grozny burn and still carried the smoke in his lungs. Ewan, broad Scot, heavy hands, the burst so thick it rattled the windows. He called himself Glaswegian to the pub crowd, but to Clark he was Anton, Ukrainian, a bomb maker whose fingers were stained with TNT residue. Nadia, Midlands crisp, the least convincing but loyal. She played shop girl, commuter, neighbor. She'd die before she betrayed the act. Clark leaned forward, pale eyes catching each of theirs. His voice was calm, unhurried. Clark, the final is not one target. It is 3. Rail, stadium, gridlock. They hit together or they fail together. He tapped the rail map with a gloved finger. Clark, first wave. Rail lines north and east, 20 minutes apart. Trains derailed. London paralyzed. Fans stranded. Emergency services scattered. Mark, Yuri in truth, chuckled. The Welsh lilt perfect. Yuri/Mark. They'll blame it on signal failures first, won't they? Another British cock-up. By the time they realize, he mimed an explosion with his hand, laughing. Clark didn't smile. By the time they realize there will be fireballs. He shifted to the Wembley model. Clark. Second wave. The stadium. 2 charges planted ahead of time. Structural points, not surface. Cameras everywhere. The world watching when steel and concrete fall. Connor, Mikhail, leaned forward, accent pure Cockney, slang sharp. Mikhail/Connor. And every copper will be busy at the rails. By the time they look our way, it'll already be rubble. He grinned. That's tidy, that is. Clark ignored the grin, tapping the timetable. Clark, third wave. The city locks, no trains, no buses. Gridlock from here to the river. London suffocates. Ewan, Anton, frowned. Burr heavy, Glaswegian to the ear. Anton/Ewan. And what about us? Where are we standing when the dust settles, eh? Clark looked at him, eyes pale and steady. Clark, back in the crowd, back at work, back to being ordinary. Actors don't stay on stage when the curtain drops. They vanish. Silence. Only the hum of the fridge, the scrape of Yuri's lighter as he lit another roll-up. Nadia shifted, accent clipped Midlands. Nadia. And if someone recognizes us? Too many visitors. Too many eyes. Clark cut her off. Clark. No one will. You are accents. You are paperwork. You are ghosts. London is already yours. Yuri leaned back, cigarette smoke curling. Welsh vowels so smooth they almost fooled Clark himself. Yuri/Mark. Kremlin would clap their hands, eh? All these years they thought spies wore suits and carried briefcases. We drink pints, queue for trains, moan about the weather. Mikhail snorted, dropping his Cockney tone for just a word, his true voice slipping like a blade. Mikhail. And still, they never see us coming. Clark's gaze snapped to him, cold, warning. Clark. Never break the mask. Not in shops, not in pubs, not in bed, not even with each other. You are British until the day you are not. The weight of it hung, heavy, absolute. Clark folded his hands, pale eyes unblinking. Clark, this is not madness. It is music. When the bombs sing, the city will choke and the world will watch. You are not killers. You are instruments. Play your notes. Play them well. 2 nights later, the act ended. Croydon neighbors called in whispers. Curtains always drawn. Visitors at odd hours. Faces that never quite matched their stories. A call was made. A file opened. A warrant signed. Sergeant Radcliffe was sent to the door. The entry was fast. Boots thundered. The door went in with a crack, and there was Clark. Maps on the table. Timetables marked. Wembley's model under the lamp. He didn't run, didn't shout, only looked up, pale eyes steady, and said, stripped of accent, "Clark, you're early." They cuffed him, dragged him into cell 8, but Clark wasn't a prisoner. Not really. He was Spectre. And as Radcliffe's baton hovered in his hand, Clark knew. The play had only been delayed. The actors were still out there, and the curtain had not yet fallen. The flat in Croydon was nothing from the outside. 2 up, 2 down, lace curtains. A tired Ford parked half on the curb. Neighbors would have sworn a quiet accountant lived here. Sometimes a teacher, sometimes an IT man who traveled. Inside told a different story. Curtains pinned shut, stale air heavy with smoke and fried onions. On the table, a model of Wembley under a single lamp, rail maps spread wide, timetables marked in red, burner phones lined up like soldiers. Paperwork stacked in neat piles. Too neat, too deliberate. And in the center sat Adam Clark, pale eyes fixed on the model, hands folded, calm. The door went in with a crack. Radcliffe led the entry team, baton in hand, boots hammering down the hallway. 2 constables peeled left, 1 right, shouts echoing, "Clear! Clear!" The living room wasn't. Clark didn't run. He didn't shout. He only looked up, tilting his head as if they'd arrived early to dinner. "Clark, you're early." The officers fanned out, weapons raised, adrenaline in their throats. Radcliffe's boots planted on the carpet, eyes narrowing on the maps, the phones, the stadium model glowing under the lamp. He raised his voice hard and practiced. "Radcliffe, Adam Clark, you are under arrest on suspicion of terrorism offenses. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defense if you do not mention when questioned something you later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence." The words filled the room, heavy, official, ritual. Clark didn't blink, didn't twitch. He only smiled faintly, lips curling as if he'd been waiting for this line. "Clark, beautiful words. A ritual? You think it binds me, Sergeant? That saying them makes me yours." Constable Evans, barely out of probation himself, gripped Clark's arm tighter. "Shut it!" His voice cracked with nerves. Clark leaned his head slightly, voice smooth, quiet. "Clark, do you know what an arrest really is? It's theater, a performance. You speak your lines. I play my role. And the audience believes the story." His pale eyes met Radcliffe's, unblinking. "Clark, but I wrote the script long before you stepped on stage." The room went colder. Radcliffe shoved him forward, cuffs biting tight on his wrists. The Wembley model shook on the table. One of the phones buzzed, screen lighting with an anonymous number. The constables looked to Radcliffe for reassurance, but none came. For the first time in his career, Radcliffe had the sinking feeling that nothing was under control. The man in cuffs wasn't caught. He wasn't finished. He was waiting. And as they dragged him through the narrow hallway, past the peeling wallpaper, and into the night, Clark smiled again. Back at the police station, the armory doors slammed behind them with a hollow clang, metal on metal, a lock engaged. For the first time in what felt like hours, there was no gunfire, no screaming, just the hiss of alarms and the sound of their own breathing. The survivors stood in the doorway like ghosts dragged from a fire. Hart, Miles, Patel, Tank, Daz, Clark. That was all. The air inside was cooler, dry. The smell of gun oil and steel cut through the copper stench clinging to their uniforms. Fluorescent tubes buzzed overhead, casting white light across racks of weapons, locked cabinets, Boxes stamped METPOLICE-FIREARMSUNIT. Miles swayed on his feet, his throat still raw from the terrorist's grip, his arms trembling with exhaustion. He stared at the racks as though they weren't real. Guns. Real guns. Rows of carbines, pistols, shotguns, magazines stacked in neat trays. Weapons he'd only seen during training days. Hart shoved him toward a bench. "Sit down before you fall down, lad." Miles dropped hard, head in his hands, trying not to see the blood still under his nails. Patel leaned against the wall, her face pale under streaks of blood. Her legs shook every time she put weight on it. We're the last?" Hart didn't answer. He grabbed a cabinet key from the wall box, slammed it into the lock, and tore it open. His voice was clipped, hard. "Don't waste breath on numbers. We're not corpses yet." He tossed a pistol across to Patel. She fumbled, caught it with both hands, held it like it might bite her. Tank's eyes widened. Oi! Oi! We getting armed up as well?" Hart snapped at him, gum chewed flat between his teeth. "Not a chance." "You lot are baggage, not backup." Tank snarled, fists flexing. "Baggage? I just dragged half your lads through that fucking bloodbath." "Yeah," Hart spat. "And if I put a Glock in your hands, I'm as dead as they are." Daz raised both hands. "I don't want no fucking gun, mate. I'm just trying to survive." "Shut it," Hart barked. Through it all, Clark stood still, calm. His cuffs clinked when he shifted, pale eyes taking in the racks of weapons, the locked door, the survivors breathing ragged. Finally he spoke, voice soft. "You won't hold them. Not with this. Not here." Hart turned on him, pistol raised. "You shut your mouth before I put you down." Clark tilted his head, unmoved. "I'm not wrong. You think these walls will stop them? They'll cut power, breach doors, flood smoke. You'll be cornered again. And again. Until none of you walk out." Tank snorted. "And what, mate? You've got a better plan?" Clark's pale eyes moved to him. "I know what they want. I know how they think. Because I built them." The words dropped like stone. Patel's head jerked up. "What?" Clark's voice stayed level, quiet. "Those men. Outside. They're not strangers to me. They're my actors. My network. My play. They've come for me." Miles lifted his head, hollow-eyed, throat dry. "Actors?" Clark looked at him. "You've seen their masks, but you haven't heard their voices yet. Northern, London, Scottish. Every word rehearsed, every accent perfect. The Kremlin would be proud." Silence. Only the buzz of the lights and the thunder of Miles's heart. Hart spat on the floor, gun still aimed at Clark. "You're talking bollocks." Clark didn't blink. "Am I?" "You've already heard them on the megaphone. Calm, controlled. Not like fanatics. Like soldiers. Like performers hitting their marks." Miles' skin prickled. He remembered the voice. Calm. Northern vowels steady as stone. "Release the prisoner in number 8. He shivered. Hart shoved the pistol back into a holster, jaw clenched. "Doesn't matter who the fuck they are. All that matters is we dig in. Load up. Make a stand." He shoved rifles into Patel's arms, passed another across to Miles. Miles stared at it, throat tightening. His stomach rolled. His hands shook as he took it, the weight alien and cold. The first time, it had been instinct, pure survival. This time, he had no excuse. He was a police officer holding a gun. He was part of a war. From somewhere beyond the armory walls came a dull thud. Then another. Boots. Shouts. Muffled orders in a language none of them recognized. Patel flinched, fumbling to load her pistol. Tank's fist tightened. Daz whimpered, back pressed against the wall. Hart chambered around, voice steady even as his jaw shook. "They've found us." Clark's mouth curved, faint, almost a smile. "I told you." Miles swallowed hard, fingers locked around the rifle. There was no going back, only forward.